agenda.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media. It is 12:36. The Association of Muslim Accountants and Lawyers, or AMAL, will be hosting a webinar, the Management of Masaajids, Constitutions and Contracts webinar, this Saturday, the 25th of June 2022. To tell us more about it is attorney Ashraf Parker. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Ashraf. Shukran for joining me.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa ala barakatuh, Sister Mariam, and to the listeners out there.
All right. Now tell us a little bit more about the webinar. You know, the constitution, it's the Management of Masaajids, Constitutions and Contracts webinar. What is it all about?
Sister Mariam, basically, AMAL, which is a voluntary association of Muslim accountants and lawyers that's represented nationally, felt that there was a need to educate masajids and madrasas on the topic of, the formal documents that governs them. Because in South African law, there's no obligation for a masajid to actually register to have a license by virtue of the constitution and freedom of association in order to operate. And depending on the type of the legal entity within which a masjid chooses to arrange itself, and also depending on whether it chooses to operate as a non-profit or public benefit organization, it then may have to register with different departments or the agencies of government. So we felt that there is a need to sort of educate the masjids, the committees, trustees, etc., just to give them advice. And we have lined up a specialist in the field that will be part of the webinar, and I will provide a bit of more details on that towards the end of the program.
All right. Now, what are some of the topics that will be covered?
Yes, look, some of the topics that will be covered in particular will be rules and regulations relating to the 4 or 5 types of entities in which a masjid or a madrasa can be housed. In terms of Section 18 of our Constitution, there is a right to the freedom of association, which gives, like I said before, anyone the right to associate and form organizations in whichever way they choose. However, the type of the legal entity it chooses is important because it determines who will be able to conclude contracts on behalf of the organization and who will be liable on behalf of the organization if things go wrong. And it also enables an organization to open a bank account in its own name and gives the organization credibility with donors. And finally, it ensures that the work of the organization can carry on past the lifetime of those who originally founded it or who are currently involved. And there's basically 4 types of entities, and I'd be happy to spend just a minute or two on them, if you permit me.
Yes, please.
The first type of association is what we call a VA, which is a voluntary association, where you don't have to register a voluntary. It's only an agreement between 3 or more people to achieve a common object, primarily other than the making of profit. Example, to meet and to worship together as a masjid. That it does not mean that voluntary associations may not receive or make money. However, the business component may not be the main reason for its existence. And the powers of a voluntary association are merely determined by the agreement, normally by way of a constitution, together with the principles of what we call the common law. But if a party exceeds powers, an interested party can, for example, apply to interdict, etc., etc. Then you have a second vehicle, which is a trust, and these have to be registered with the Master of the High Court, and it's always subject to the Trust Property Control Act. They are subject to strict governance to ensure that trustees act in accordance with the letters of authority and the powers vested in a trustee, and it obliges them to remain focused on achieving the stated public benefit objects of the trust. And it also provides for removal of trustees in the event of a trustee's failure to perform his or her duties. Trusts are generally not particularly suitable in that they are often member-driven. They are more suited to donor organizations that are more vision or top-driven by a board of trustees. Examples, trusts that are set up to raise funds for the poor and needy. That's the second one. The third one is what we call the NPC. It was normally known previously as a Section 21 company, and they have to be registered with the Companies and Intellectual Properties Commission called SIPSI in Pretoria. They are subject to strict governance to ensure that members and directors do not benefit from income or surpluses. They must also remain focused on achieving the stated public benefit objectives set out in the Memorandum of Incorporation. And again, this does not mean that NPCs may not make profit, but simply that profits made may not be shared out between members, directors, employees. Rather, they must be retained by the NPC and used in pursuit of its main object or invested for the same purposes. And then lastly, we have what we call NPO and PBO. A volunteer association, a trust, or an NPC can all register as non-profit organizations with the Department of Social Development. They're called DSD in terms of the Non-Profit Organization Act. And there are differences between a non-governmental organization and a non-profit organization. And the aim of this webinar is to explain the differences so that our viewership will have a clearer and better understanding as to what are the pros and what are the cons, advantages and disadvantages of registering either as an NPO or as a PBO.
All right. And how can people participate in the webinar?
Yes. The webinar, inshallah, is due to be held on this coming Saturday, the 25th of June at 10 a.m. in the morning. It will last for up to 2 hours, and there will be a question and answer session. If anybody wishes to obtain the link, they are free to send an email to info@amal.co.za, info@amal.co.za, and we also have a telephone number. It's 031 207 3381. I'll repeat that, 031 207 3381, and they will be given the link and the password to attend this meeting online.
Right. And quickly, tell us about the partnership with Al Baraka Bank.
Yes, Al Baraka Bank, AMAL was initially just a voluntary association of Muslim accountants and lawyers, but for a number of years, Al Baraka Bank has come on board and provided a lot of support to AMAL in hosting webinars, providing infrastructure, because we're a non-profit organization, we're not an association for gain. They've been quite and very supportive of in assisting AMAL in carrying out its aims and objectives in all provinces. And the association is indeed grateful to Al Baraka Bank for the support that it has received over the last few years. Alhamdulillah.
All right. Now, quickly, your word of advice to anyone watching or listening. Why should they participate in this webinar?
I think one of the primary reasons is that over the last few years, and I'll speak as an attorney, every week or every month, there is so much legislation that is being published and gazetted. And organizations generally sometimes are not aware of it until some bright spark decides to challenge them, take them to a court of law, and expose them, etc., if for any reason they were party to any unlawful conduct. I think, and going forward, there is going to be more legislation, because what happens is we are in a, and when I say we, I mean trustees and masjids are in a fiduciary duty, and they collect funds from the Jamaat and the people that attend the mosque and their families and from businesses. And for that reason, they have a fiduciary duty to account for the collection of funds, to preserve and to maintain mosque property. There was an example that I heard recently where a masjid property, which is actually waqf, was actually bonded by one of the trustees to a bank and did not pay the bond installments. And eventually, the community had to step in and they had to save this mosque from being auctioned off by a bank. So
Wow.
the advice that this webinar aims to give is to tell people you have a duty to organize yourselves in one
Mm-hmm.
of these vehicles. We don't recommend a vehicle. It's for you to seek the advice which one suits your own circumstances. But in that way, and I think it's an amana, you have a duty to account for any funds that you collect, for any property that you maintain, in the interest of the society. So that is the main aim, of this particular webinar, to educate current trusts and constitutions of people that are occupying important positions. And they will only be the wiser, once they attend this particular webinar, and they can seek advice, to ensure that the organizations are properly run and in compliance with the law.
Wow. Very, very important here. Something that I think not many people consider. We hear of trustees and board members, etc., but we always overlook it and think, but why must a masjid have a trustee, etc., etc. But very important and something that people need to attend in order to understand. Shukran so much for your time, Brother Ashraf, and may Allah make this a success.
Inshallah, shukran, Sister Mariam, for having us, and we look forward to people to attend. And again, you can send an info to info@amal.co.za. Shukran, jazilan wa akhi dawana, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That was attorney Brother Ashraf Parker from AMAL, the Association of Muslim Accountants and Lawyers. They will be hosting a webinar this Saturday, the Management of Masaajids, Constitutions and Contracts webinar taking place at 10 a.m. until 12 p.m. and it's absolutely free of charge and it is a Zoom conference. If you'd like to know more, the poster is available on their Facebook page. Ashraf Parker will be the facilitator, and the speaker will be Faisal Bardeen, who is also an attorney and conveyancer. And many trustees of Masajid have consulted Faisal Bardeen in respect of their constitutions, employment contracts, and the likes. Additionally, Faisal serves as deputy chairperson of SANZAF, South African National Zakah Fund, widely known social welfare and educational organization. For more information, you can contact Amal on 031 207 3381. Alternatively, you can send an email to info@amal.co.za. That's info@amal.co.za. The Management of Masajid, Constitutions and Contracts webinar taking place this Saturday. Don't miss it. You are listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media. We will be right back.